Okay, it says they're live. Good afternoon, everybody. So we are going to move immediately into the public meeting. We have a couple of resolutions to read that are business coming out of our closed meeting. We'll do those first and then move into the public meeting. So the first is a bylaw, that bylaw number 2022-039, being a bylaw to authorize the purchase of part of lot 34, concession 1, Christie, parts A and B, PSR 2153, STR 045743, and RO 45744, and RO 45745, RO 45746, RO 52727, RO 159974, and RO 159975, ST execution 93-000123, if enforceable. Seguin, subject to an easement over Part A, PSR 2153, in favor of Part 33, PSR 2093, as in GB 33187, being all of the lands described in PIN 52177-0502, portion of Elsasser Road, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat?
I so move that motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Coles?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Thank you, and that's carried. And I have a second motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive confidential staff report number AD-2022-003 and approve the following increases to the 2022 budget to fund and begin the implementation of various recommendations in the IT systems review and strategy final report from Perry Group Consulting Limited. Increase the 2022 IT capital budget by $100,000 and increase the 2022 IT operating budget by $50,000. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne
So moved.
and seconded by Councillor Fellner?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Thank you. Okay. So I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn the regular meeting to hold a public meeting for the following matters. Zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2021-0012-H for Smith. Consent applications numbers B 2021-0016-H and B 2021-0017-H for Gray, and zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2021-0019-H. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins,
I so move your motion, Mayor.
seconded by Councillor Finson?
I second that motion.
All in favor of moving into the public meeting? Thank you. And I remind everybody that these are for information only tonight. We have some consultants here who will speak to the individual items. Council will now hold public meetings for proposed consent and zoning bylaw amendment applications. In accordance with the Planning Act, Council will consider all matters placed before it prior to granting a consent or passing a zoning bylaw. If a person or public body who files an appeal of a decision of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin in respect of a proposed consent does not make written submissions to the council before it provides or refuses to provide a provisional consent, the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss the appeal. Anyone wishing to receive notice of the passing of a zoning bylaw amendment, not owning land within 120 meters of the area to which it applies, and who has not submitted such a request in writing, should provide your full name and address to the clerk. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of council to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. The purpose of zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2021-0012-H for Smith is to rezone the subject property from limited service residential zone to limited service residential exception zone. The effect of the application is to facilitate the construction of a 1.5-story boathouse with a dock of 35.1 meters in width, whereas 23 meters is permitted. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property and by regular mail on February 15th, 2022. Notice was therefore considered to be provided in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to this application?
Correspondence has been received from Brian and Mary Smith, Charis Wall, Clive Mail, Jacob Jackson, Janet and Paul Morrison, Jason Chapnick, Keisha Seidegard, and George Spears, the Lake Joseph North Association, Magda Seidegard, Ray Elliott, and Sarah Spears.
Has anyone registered to speak to this application?
Paul Morrison, Carol Fraser of Planscape, and Francis Carmichael of the Lake Joseph North Association have registered to speak to this application.
Okay, so I will first call on Paul Morrison if he's here. Is he?
I am here, yes.
Okay, you have the floor for a maximum of 5 minutes.
I won't need that. I won't need to take that long. I really did not anticipate speaking orally to the meeting. My position with respect to the application is contained in the correspondence that my wife and I sent to the township clerk a few days ago. Suffice to say in summary that our property is located directly across the bay in question from the applicant's property. It's a very narrow bay, comes in from Bernaghi Bay, which is quite a big bay, but the small bay that has about five cottages in it is quite small and quite narrow, and a deviation from the official plan and the zoning bylaw of this magnitude would cause that property, and in particular the boathouse and the excessive dock, to stand out in the bay, to, I would think, impede the enjoyment of the bay by those whose properties are in it, and is not, in my view, warranted in the circumstances. I think if together with the dock, which is what they already have existing on that property, to allow this dock and boathouse to be built, would leave that property with practically no shoreline that isn't covered by dock. Practically no shoreline. I don't have the number, but there would be very little shoreline left on that property that would not be covered by either the existing dock or the new dock.
Thank you very much. And
Thank
council
you.
has copies of all of the correspondence which has been received. It's in your addendum package. Is Carol Fraser here from Planscape? Oh,
Hi, Madam Chair. Yes, Stefan Sherback from Planscape. Carol sent the original request on my behalf.
Okay, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Again, my name is Stefan Sherback, and I'm a planner with Planscape Inc., 104 Kimberley Avenue in Bracebridge. I'm here today representing the Smith family with respect to the application. I've read the staff report, and I agree with the planning analysis that's contained within it in relation to this proposal. And if I could just add a bit of background information related to this proposal. The subject property is very large. It's an existing residential developed property. It has approximately 134.6 meters of straight line bylaw frontage. Or if you were to actually take the actual frontage, we're looking at approximately 170 meters of frontage due to this irregular shoreline. It's developed with a dwelling or garage, and there's an existing legal non-complying shoreline dock that's on the property. It's non-complying because of its oversized width, and the current structure actually hugs the shoreline and accounts for approximately 26.9 meters wide. So it is already existing and oversized in terms of width. It's my understanding that the dock was constructed for those to enjoy a steep diving rock that's situated on the northern limits of the lot itself. The applicants have worked extensively with your former staff to achieve the proposed location of the boathouse. And their original request was actually larger than proposed, but for various reasons, it has been reduced to what you have in front of you today. The main reason is if you were to take a look at the maybe page 6 of the planning justification report, you'll see that the dock has 3 sides. It's a very irregular shape. The boathouse is going to be situated on an existing side of that 3-sided dock. So in effect, there's no additional shoreline that's being extended on the property. It's sitting on top of the existing dock. Because of the angle and because of the projection of the boathouse, in effect creates an addition to the width as proposed. The angle is there in place because the ingress and egress of the boathouse will actually be turned into the bay because to avoid wave action and winds. And essentially when traveling through the big bay in front of the property, you'll effectively see the side of the boathouse and not the front of the boathouse. There's also some water depth issues, and they've also tucked the boathouse into this knoll on the property itself to keep it tucked into the shoreline. The boathouse itself is not oversized. It meets your maximum width, your maximum length, and your maximum height provisions of the bylaw. There's no extra exceptions required for this application. And in addition, you have the full planning justification report that's included in the agenda package. I do note that your staff included a very similar policy review in the report in front of you. And Madam Chair and members of council, in conclusion, the proposal is appropriate for this larger lot in this location. The oversized dock already forms part of the character in this bay, and the proposed boathouse will not exceed any of the other bylaw limitations. It's not going to block any of the neighboring views. In fact, the abutting property owners have all submitted letters of support who will be directly and closely impacted with this proposed structure. It's therefore my opinion that the zoning bylaw application complies with the general intent of your zoning bylaw, conforms with the applicable policies of your official plan, and of course is consistent with the growth plan for Northern Ontario and provincial policy statement. Perhaps just to address one of the comments previously, again, this structure is going to account for approximately 25% of the entire shoreline. It is not covering the property from corner to corner. It's a very large property. And again, there's no additional width dock extensions on the property. They're simply utilizing this existing structure and sitting the boathouse on top. Madam Mayor, we would kindly request council support with this application, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. And before we open it up to council questions, I'd call on Francis Carmichael from the Lake Joseph North Association to speak next on this. Is Francis there? She was.
There I am here.
Okay.
Right, thank you. Yes, I'm a director of the Lake Joseph North Association, and I am here representing them. We are opposed to this application. I'm quite familiar with the bay. It is, as Paul points out, quite small. We are aware of 7 letters of objection that have been sent into council. I don't know who the supporters are, but there are 7 who are either near neighbors or out, say, in Bernagay Bay. So we feel that this will have an adverse effect on the bay and the general look of the lake in that spot.
Thank you very much. Does council have any questions of our three presenters? I see no hand. Oops, Councillor Moffat.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for Stefan. I'm looking at page 6 of, I guess it's your report, figure 7, proposed plan. I just want to get clarification. It's kind of hard to see your comment about the dock and the boathouse sitting on top of the existing dock. It appears that just the corner, I can't tell how big of the boathouse is taking up of that piece of the dock. I'm wondering if you could just clarify with reference to that figure, please.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Osborne. Yeah, I apologize that the photo itself, or the picture in the report, is what happens when it gets scanned. It's a little hard to read, but you can see a brown hatched area called existing dock. So there's 3 sides to it. There's one which is clearly vacant on the north side. There's one flat surface, another side where the word existing is. And then along the side where you see proposed boathouse, that is an existing portion of the dock. So it's got 3 sides, and it forms a point just past the existing structure. So essentially the boathouse is sitting on that 3rd southerly side. And again, there's no extensions to that dock. It's going to sit on top, and there's going to be a bridge that's going to access the boathouse from the shoreline. So the corner of the dock is somewhat just below the word bridge. You can see where the point is. That is existing. It's in place. And again, the boathouse is simply sitting on top of that.
Okay, and just to clarify, it was Councillor Moffat, not Osborne.
My apologies. Sorry, Councillor Moffat.
Thank you.
But just to clarify further from Councillor Moffat, the corner is on the existing dock, but the pieces of the new dock that will create the slip, the 2 slips, are new construction, correct?
The boathouse structure will contain some existing docks surrounding it. That's right. But again, it's not going to go past that point, that existing point on the shoreline. So it is being situated so that it's not further extending the existing dock. It's just simply because of the angle that you have to take the width of that angle. So along the shoreline, there's going to be no additional width. It's essentially just tucked into that one corner, and there's going to be a small portion of it that's going to be added to the bridge. In essence, I mean, what this is doing is it's adding approximately 10 meters from what currently exists. We know that the 23 meters is the limitation, but again, it is a non-complying width that it currently exists.
But using the same diagram, I think it says 11 meters will project out into the bay of new construction, new dock construction.
I think that's right.
We're going to mute, Stefan.
Oh, Stefan, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. Yes, you are correct. The 11 meters is projecting out into the water. That's part of the boathouse dock structure, is that it's extending out into the water. And yes, there are docks associated with that.
Thank you. Councillor Fellner, you're next.
Stefan, so the purpose of the application isn't to, I mean, you could build your new boat without utilizing the existing dock, correct?
My apologies. Sorry, there was you broke up there and I didn't understand the
Sorry,
question.
sorry. Sometimes the internet's sketchy. So my question was: is the new construction could be constructed without utilizing the existing dock? I mean, you're using the existing dock as the very back of the structure, correct? Like all of the other parts of the dock really have nothing to do with the boathouse.
That is correct. Yes. Yeah.
Right. So, you know, I mean, it's a big, big dock to start with, and then because of the way that it's configured, and the way that it was configured when it was built. And now you're proposing to add again to it, and to me, it's a bit of a stretch. But because the existing dock doesn't really play a part in the new construction of it at all. You could build a boathouse, and the way I see it on your sketch, anyhow, correct me if I'm wrong, but would that be sort of an accurate analysis in your mind?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. I mean, again, the boathouse is utilizing the existing structure. It's already wider than what is permitted normally. And again, because of the angle and the reasons that I discussed earlier, I mean, if it were turned counterclockwise to be within, to reduce that width slightly, then you get into issues with open water, wind, safety, and water depth issues, where the applicant has been really trying to attempt to tuck it into that little bay as much as possible. Again, keeping the existing dock, there's no, this dock has formed the character of this area. And I mean, looking at the property itself, even with the straight line frontage, you're still within the 25% of the entire lot frontage, albeit more than the maximum permitted, but it still is within the 25% target, considering the size of this property.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to, I guess maybe Jamie Robinson and or Stefan.
He's not here.
Back to the executive summary we have in our report here. I see existing dock of 26.9 meters in width, boathouse 10.5 meters, and due to the angle, the total shoreline structure will be 35 meters. So I guess 26 and 10.9 and 10.5 adds up to actually more than 35 meters. Overall, it's a 50% increase in what's allowed. Now, I understand that the existing dock is legal non-compliant, but by adding to that existing legal non-compliant dock, are we not going well beyond the permitted 23 meters? That's my first question. Second question is there's a comment from the CAO regarding potential environmental impacts and further potential studies. I'd like a further expression of that comment, please, from the CAO. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks. Through your worship to the councillor. And first off, the numbers that you've identified, if we were to just simply add up the existing dock plus the proposed boathouse, the reason they don't add up is because the way shoreline width is measured. So it's equivalent to if you had a property and we're creating two lots from it, the frontages don't always add up at the end of the day because of the way things are measured. So that's item one. And then 1A to that is that you're correct. There is an increase that's being proposed to the maximum width. That's the purpose of the application. So that's the nature of that piece. And then I think the second question you had was from Mr. Inwood, I believe.
So just to follow up, Jamie, on your response there, it is a 50% increase over what's permitted, correct?
Yes, I believe that's correct. Yeah.
Thank you. Jason, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Osborne. At the time of my review, I did not have the planning justification report. I've since received it and was able to see that the appropriate fish habitats were not being impacted. So my comments were reviewed and sufficient detail was provided.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see no further questions from council, so staff will bring back a recommendation at a later date. Thank you to Francis, Paul, and Jamie, and I will move on to the second application. The purpose of consent application number B 2021-0016-H and B 2021-0017-H for Gray is to undertake 2 lot additions on the subject properties located at 122, 124, and 128 Grays Road in the Township of Seguin. The first lot addition seeks to sever approximately 5.2 hectares or 13 acres from the lot at 124 Grays Road, which is to be conveyed to the property located at 122 Grays Road. The second lot addition seeks to sever approximately 7.2 hectares or 17.9 acres from the property located at 124 Grays Road, which is to be conveyed to the lot located at 128 Grays Road. The additional lot area will qualify both properties for the Managed Forest Tax Incentive Program. No new lots are created as part of this application. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property and by regular mail on February 18th, 2022. Notice was therefore considered provided in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to these applications?
Correspondence has been received from Savas Veritas of Plan Muskoka, Andy and Donna Gray, Bradley and Catherine Nullmeyer, Brian and Mary Smith, Dan Scott, Gary Hurwitz, Judy and Ron Gage, gentleman, the trustee for Gary Hurwitz Trust, and Paul Scott.
Has anyone registered to speak to these applications?
Ryan Allen of Planscape and Savas Veritas of Plan Muskoka have registered to speak to these applications.
Okay, is Ryan available to start off?
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening. My name is Ryan Allen. I'm a registered professional planner with Planscape, 104 Kimberley Ave, P1L 1Z8 Bracebridge. I have a brief presentation that I would like to share, if you don't mind me sharing my screen.
No, go ahead.
Start of it. Excuse me. False start. Apologies. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet.
We did briefly for a second, but
I think I've got one too many windows open. If you'll just bear with me while I close these windows. I apologize for this, committee. I'm just going to start my presentation. I will try to make my way through the details. One thing I would like to show council or committee in particular, that this application has changed names since first being submitted. Originally, it was submitted in the owner of Andy Gray. Now the property is in the ownership of Peter Schwartz. This is the property that's at 124 Grays Road.
we can
You
see
can
your
see my screen now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So the property is located at the north end of Lake Joseph and also has frontage on a small lake known as Fraser Lake. The red highlighted area is the subject lands, and that's 1024 Grays Road. And there's two abutting lots, 122 Grays Road and 128 Grays Road. These lots are proposed to be enlarged through the lot addition. This next slide shows the proposed lot addition. You'll see the blue shaded property and the purple shaded property. Those are existing lots that are to receive lands from the subject property. Lot addition 1 will sever the yellow shaded lands and add that to the blue shaded property. The lot addition number 2 is the orange shaded lands, and that proposes to sever approximately 5 hectares, 12 acres, and add to the purple shaded lands. And the remaining lands at 124 Grays Road will be the retained lot, and they're shown in green. So you'll see that the resultant areas and frontages for lot number 1 and lot addition number 1 will increase the size of the lot and frontage. The retained lot will have approximately 467 feet of frontage on Lake on Lake Joseph, as well as approximately 13 hectares. And lot addition number 2 does not add any additional frontage on Lake Joseph, but will add frontage on Fraser Lake to existing lot number 2. I would note that existing lot number 2 and lot number 1 are both developed with existing dwellings and boathouses. The retained lot, this is the lot to be severed, is also developed with a boathouse that is located, a dwelling that's located within a boathouse and an existing dwelling on shore. Mr. Schwartz proposes to remove the dwelling on shore, but for committee's purpose, I want to inform them that he's had Hydro over to look at some of the details, and apparently there is some services within that building that make it somewhat more technical and complicated to proceed with immediate demolition. But the plan is to proceed with demolition once those technical issues can be addressed. So in terms of planning analysis, the proposal in front of you is simply a change of common lot lines. No new lots are proposed to be created, and Mr. Schwartz has no plans to construct any new buildings or structures at this time. There's an agreement in place with the neighboring property owners that prevents the use of the road to service additional new lots. So, the number of lots here today is what you see is what you get, with the exception of the reconfiguration lot lines. Grays Road will also be primarily located on one lot as a result of the severance. The property at 122 Grays Road will maintain the bulk of the area of the road. As was mentioned, the increased lot area is required for an application to the managed forest tax incentive program. And I think that I just want to hit on that point in particular. Mr. Schwartz is very interested in environmental protection in this area and limiting the impact of any new additional development. The managed forest tax incentive program does have some benefits to landowners, but it also has certain obligations. For example, tree clearing and substantial alteration to vegetation, as well as limitations on development, are required. And I would note that while there is new lot frontage being created on Fraser Lake, there's no new lot being created on Fraser Lake. There's an existing waterfront lot that already has frontage on Lake Joe, and that lot is presently developed with an existing dwelling. A second dwelling is not permitted. And I think any reasonable person would presume that the desirable frontage to be developed on this property is the west-facing view on Lake Joseph, and not the frontage on Fraser Lake, which is effectively a small pond by comparison. We have reviewed and understand the comments that have been submitted from Mr. Veratis, as well as Davies Howe, and to address any concerns about development in proximity to Fraser Lake and in any environmental impacts, we are willing to restrict development in proximity of that shoreline. As I mentioned, Mr. Schwartz has no plans to develop on that portion of the lot anyhow. We have received letters of support from, with the exception of Mr. Chapnick, every neighbor that's in that owns property in this area. And I also want to mention as well that the existing 1.5-story boathouse and the existing dwelling on 124 Grays Road were constructed more than 60 years ago, and these are non-complying structures. So it would be my professional opinion that this proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms to the official plan, and represents good planning. I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee may have. Thank you, and sorry about the screen sharing issue. This is my first day back from parental leave, and I'm a bit rusty.
Thank you very much. Before we take questions, I'm going to ask Savas from Plan Muskoka to speak. So we have both points of view. Councillor Osborne, I see your hand up, but let's listen to the second planner, if you may. Savas?
Thank you. Good evening, members of council. My name is Savas Veratis from Plan Muskoka. Mailing address is PO Box 5384, Huntsville, Ontario, P1H2K7. I've been retained by Jason Chapnick. He's the like a local landowner to the northwest of this property that's taken some interest in it, and wanted me to review the proposal and provide my planning opinion on it. I provided a letter of opinion in writing to staff and council, which hopefully made it into the agenda package. It was submitted last week, or sorry, earlier this week.
Yes, we have it in our package.
Perfect. So that would give you the detailed review of my opinion on the application. Just to very briefly give you an idea of what the gist of it is while I do understand that lot additions normally that don't create new lots don't normally have the effect of not really ruffling any feathers in terms of the Planning Act or the official plan conformity. But in this case, this one's a little bit different in that the resultant is that there is a new frontage being proposed for Fraser Lake. So Fraser Lake is that small inland lake that you see north of Lake Joseph on the key map. Currently, the retained lands entirely encompass its frontage with the exception of one property to the east that also has frontage on it. But what the resulting lot fabric is or creates is a situation where now two properties instead of one, in terms of the retained lands boundary, has frontage on that lake. So when you look at the official plan, and there is a schedule in it that lists the classifications of all lakes in Township of Seguin, and this one is unclassified, being Fraser Lake. So Fraser Lake being unclassified, the official plan gives direction that before any development is proposed on an unclassified lake, it has to be modeled to determine its classification, whether it's sensitive or moderately sensitive or highly sensitive. So that has not been done in terms of by anyone up to this point, as it remains unclassified in the official plan. The official plan is pretty clear when it says that no new development. And I understand that the applicants and the proponents for the applicants have stated that there is no proposed development on Fraser Lake. But what the resulted law fabric does is not preclude that possibility that be any future development on Fraser Lake. It doesn't preclude the fact that now there's two lots that could recreationally use Fraser Lake. So what you end up with is a situation where it doesn't seem likely that there would be development on Fraser Lake, but it doesn't preclude it from happening. And because of that, this is new development rights being granted on Fraser Lake. And the official plan says if you're going to propose new development on unclassified lake, you have to model it first. So there are other policies that also speak to site evaluation reports being required, specifically for land within 300 meters of these types of lakes. If you're assuming the worst case scenario that it's highly sensitive, any new development within 300 meters would have an impact on that lake. So that's generally what the letter of opinion that I wrote spells out.
No.
Sorry.
There's a controversial couple of applications.
Sorry, Savas, you still have the floor, I believe. I don't know who I'm listening to.
I think someone just unmuted. That's all. So that's basically the gist of the letter that I provided. So when you look at it from that perspective, the Planning Act has specific criteria under Section 5124 that consents have to have regard to, and one of them whether or not the application is premature. So in the idea that this lake is not modeled and there is development, by development, I understand that it's just one new frontage being granted, but there is, in fact, could be considered new development rights being granted onto Fraser Lake. With that in mind, the application seems premature until we do some environmental work to understand the nature of Fraser Lake and whether or not any new development in the future could be supported on Fraser Lake. So that's basically the idea that we're coming across. So my recommendation, I understand that this is just an information only meeting and there's no decision being made here today, but my recommendation for council would be that some of this work occur prior to any decision being made on the application, or the proponents of the application rework the lot fabric that they're proposing and come up with a situation where there's no new Fraser Lake frontage being proposed as a result of the boundary adjustments. So that's my opinion on the matter, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll open it up to questions from council, and Councillor Osborne is first.
Thank you, Mayor. This question for Mr. Baradas. My original question was going to be what the purpose of these severing lot additions and benefiting lands, what the purpose of this was. There doesn't appear to be a purpose there, but as Mr. Baradas has pointed out, it will provide more waterfront access when this is done. And I'm wondering if, in fact, and I guess this question is for the other consultant, is what is the purpose of all of these changes?
Thank you. Through you, Councillor Osborne. I would, in short, explain that there's two abutting neighboring lots that would like to become larger. 122 will gain lot area and frontage on Lake Joseph, will provide additional privacy and separation. And the lot that's at 128 won't receive any additional frontage on Lake Joseph, but will receive additional lot area, and some of that lot area fronts onto Fraser Lake. So the long and the short of it, and then on top of it, there are two existing lots, 122 and 128, that currently do not qualify for the Managed Forest Tax Incentive Program. You require a minimum of 4 hectares to submit applications to be considered for that program. And both of those lots would be undersized and wouldn't qualify today without the additional lot area. The Managed Forest Tax Incentive Program also provides additional development controls over the property with the intention of protecting the forest.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would point it out to you that if assuming they qualify for the managed forest tax incentive, the taxes drop to 25% of their existing tax roll amount. It becomes like farm property from a taxation point of view. Any further questions? No. So thank you very much. As you stated, this is an information session and our staff will come back with reports on both of these. We have one more for Rosenberg that I will read now. The purpose of zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2021-0019-H for Rosenberg is to further amend the existing limited service residential exception 123 zone on the subject lands to permit an increase in the maximum permitted secondary dwelling unit floor area from 99 square meters to 170.6 square meters. A decrease in the minimum permitted secondary dwelling unit shoreline setback from 310 meters to 120 meters. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment is required to facilitate the construction of a secondary dwelling unit on the subject lands. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property and by regular mail on February 15th, 2022. Notice was therefore considered to provide in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to this application?
Correspondence has been received from Carolyn Norman, the Lake Joseph North Association, Miles Langstaff, and Paul Scott.
Has anyone registered to speak to this application?
John Jackson and Francis Carmichael of the Lake Joseph North Association have registered to speak to this application.
So I call on John Jackson to speak first on this.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Council. Can you hear me fine?
Yes.
Thank you. This is an application that was similar to an application approved a number of years ago. The initial application was for a secondary dwelling on the property to actually house a couple of employees. The new application is to increase the size of that secondary dwelling by about 1,000 square feet and locate it more or less in the same location. There is a need for the larger space for 2 reasons. One is to have employees available for this property, which has a high maintenance kind of demand. And the larger space under the new conditions dictates a little more spacing and amenities for each of the employees, like individual washrooms. So the actual intent is just to increase the location of the property where it is was originally to be located, which, as I say, was similar to the distance that was proposed a couple of years ago. The original approval incorrectly identified the actual setback from the lake. It wasn't going to be that much, but no one actually picked that error up until we resubmitted it in terms of this application. I've talked to Mrs. Newby. I have not talked to anybody else. She was concerned about the access and the traffic. The fact is the staff are unlikely to drive automobiles, can still likely be imported employees. This will be far enough back that you won't see it from the lake, and it'll continue with the same profile, so that the impact on the lake is going to remain unchanged. So it's that simple, Council. Be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Before we take any questions, I'll ask Francis Carmichael from Lake Joe North to speak.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. This is a application to construct a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom second cottage on this lot. It is located on the top of a hill. I'm very familiar personally with this property as I ski across it to get to Sealy Bay Road, down to Jean Marie Road, etc. On page 7 of the original report, there's a picture of where it will be located. That might look flat, but in fact, that's the very top of a very steep hill. And it is our view that this will be seen from the lake. We cannot find any evidence that the location of 310 meters back was an error. I have the original application that was signed by Mr. Rosenberg and by Mr. Jackson back in 2019 with a site plan attached that shows it back from the lake. And the approval from the staff at that time was after a site plan review where they saw that it was located far back from the lake and could not be seen from the lake in their view. So we, the Lake Joseph North Association, object to this application. The Rosenbergs do have a large property of 72 acres, but the development that is on it is all clustered on the front of this hill, including this new proposed spot. And it has the effect of cluttering up the look from the lake, which we think is an important guideline for the planning, the township's planning. So if there was an error in the township's report, I think it is on Mr. Jackson to prove that and to go back into the documents, which we cannot find, that would support that there was an error. And again, just that this is a large structure that will be seen from the lake and joining another very large structure, a tennis court pavilion structure, which actually is an enclosed winterized structure. And it is right next to the tennis and badminton court. So assumedly these staff will like to play games, but so we object.
Thank you very much. It's a very nice staff quarters for imported workers. I will have to say, if they aren't going to have any transportation, that surprises me somewhat. Does council have any questions? Thank you very much to all of the consultants that presented today. Staff is, so I see a hand. Sorry, Councillor Fellner.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mayor, I can't find my hand. Question from Mr. Jackson. The property in question is far deeper than what is depicted on Figure 2 site sketch. Am I correct?
Much deeper, yes.
Yeah, okay. So then I'm looking at the contour lines, and it would seem that Mrs. Carmichael is correct because the location of the proposed structure is at the high point of that part of the sketch. So I guess what my question to you is as you proceed deeper into the property, what does the topography do? What does the elevation just decrease or increase?
I think it would fall off a bit. I think that two things. We did show where the previous approval was. It's clearly an error. But to Mrs. Carmichael's point, we would be quite happy to adjust it so if she feels it can be seen. I have some difficulty because it is quite a distance, but we can certainly adjust it so it's located more or less in a non-obvious or seen location, or to screen it as required under the site plan. So I don't think that's an issue. That's fine, and I can present those kinds of details to the staff for their report.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, our staff will take all of the comments back from the 3 presentations and we will move on. So I have a motion that the public meeting held for the following matters is hereby closed and the regular meeting is hereby reconvened. Zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2021-0012-H. Consent application numbers B 2021-0016-H and B 2021-0017-H for Gray or Schwartz, whichever. And zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2021-0019-H for Rosenberg. Could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat?
I so move that motion, Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Coles.
And I will second that motion.
All in favor of closing the public meeting? Thank you. Now we move on to Shore Road Allowance. Do I need to read the whole list? Council will now consider the following road allowance applications. Shore Road Allowance application number RAS 2021-0026-H for Taylor on Little Whitefish Lake, bylaw number 2022-026. Shore Road Allowance application number RAS 2021-0012-F for Good on Horseshoe Lake, bylaw number 2022-025. Shore Road Allowance application number RAS 2021-0027-F for Hill on Otter Lake, bylaw number 2022-019. And Shore Road Allowance application number RAS 2021-0019-F for Sedor on Otter Lake, bylaw number 2022-017. Have any written objections been received related to the applications?
No written objections have been received related to the applications.
Has anyone registered to speak to the applications?
No one has registered to speak to the applications.
Okay, and I'm going to turn it over a little bit to Lauren. So I will read the first motion, and I believe, Lauren, you're on the hook for all 4 of these. I have a motion, bylaw number 2022-026, being a bylaw to close, stop up, and sell a portion of the original Shore Road Allowance, application number RAS 2021-0026-H for Taylor, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne
So moved.
and seconded by Councillor Fellner?
I'll second that, Mayor.
All in favor? Thank you. Lauren, do you want to explain it at all? I think your reports are always very complete, but if you have anything to add, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing to add on this one.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you. And I have bylaw number 2022-025, being a bylaw to close, stop up, and sell a portion of the original Shore Road Allowance, application number RAS 2021-0012-F for Good, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Councillor Collins, could you move this?
So move, Mayor. Thank you.
And seconded by Councillor Finson.
I second that.
Anything to add, Lauren?
Nothing further to add, Your Worship. I'm here for any questions.
Councillor Moffat has a question.
Just given the proximity to the park on Horseshoe Lake, I'm presuming that the landowner has been made aware of the sort of the boundary line or the line that's been drawn in the sand with respect to this, and there's no objections or anything with regards to it.
Sorry, through your worship to Councillor Moffat, you're correct. Mr. Good is aware of the lot line projection and wants to maintain that separation as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Laura. Thank you,
All
Mayor.
in, all in favor? Thank you. Number 3, the bylaw number 2022-019, being a bylaw to close, stop up, and sell a portion of the original shore road allowance application number RAS-2021-0027-F for Hill is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Councillor Moffat, please.
I so move that motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Coles.
I'll second that motion.
Anything to add or any questions? Nope. All in
Nothing.
favor? Thank you. See what happens when the reports are so wonderful? They slide through. Got one more. Oh, there's 2 of them?
Yes.
Okay, I have a motion that bylaw number 2022-017, being a bylaw to close, stop up, and sell a portion of the original shore road allowance application number RAS-2021-0019-F for Sedor is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne
So moved.
and seconded by Councillor Fellner?
I'll second that, Mayor.
Any comments, questions? All in favor? Thank you. That's carried. And this one comes with a deeming. So that a motion that bylaw number 2022-018, being a bylaw to deem lot 2 of plan 295, pursuant to section 50(4) of the Planning Act, not be on a plan of subdivision, property roll number 4903-030-008-02005, file number D 2021-0008-F for Sedor is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins
I so move your motion, Mayor.
and seconded by Councillor Finson?
I'll second that.
All in favor of the deeming bylaw? Thank you. Okay, so I don't need to read the whole thing. We move on to staff reports. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the staff reports as presented on the agenda for the March 7th, 2022 meeting of council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat
I so move that motion, Mayor.
and seconded by Councillor Coles?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor of receiving the staff reports? Thank you.
These are both the first one.
Okay. Okay, the motion that bylaw number 2022-2023, being a bylaw to amend the Township of Seguin zoning bylaw number 2006-125, property roll number 4903-030-007-02600, application number R 2021-0018F for Cults, concession 2, part of lot 12, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne
So moved.
and seconded by Councillor Fellner?
I'll second that, Mayor.
And Lauren, I believe this is yours again. Do you want to speak to it and explain it a little bit?
Sure, thanks, your worship. You may remember this one was brought to council last month. The public meeting was held and no concerns were received from the public. It's for creation of one new lot off of 231 Blackstone Crane Lake Road. And there are associated rezoning with it. A scoped environmental impact study was received and wetland features were identified. So those portions of the severed lot would be rezoned to environmental protection, and the rest of the severed lot would be rezoned to a special exemption zone to permit an existing hunt camp and to recognize deficient lot frontage on Lokes Road. And will also impose setbacks from Otter Lake and a nearby CP rail line.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Lauren? Okay, all in favor? And this pertains to the same piece of property that bylaw that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby grant provisional approval to consent application number B 2021-0031-F for cults, subject to the conditions set out in the decision. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins?
I so move your motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Finson.
I second that.
All in favor? Thank you. Who's speaking to the next one? It's for, oh, okay. The report 8B, it might be Rick Hunter.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Mr. Hunter asked to speak. Yes, sorry.
Okay. So we're moving on to 8B. Is Mr. Hunt? Yeah, Mr. Hunter is there. So do you want to explain what it is to us?
Your worship, I guess I'll let Jamie follow your usual practice. I'm just here basically to answer any questions if there were any that came up following the meeting. Very quickly, we did provide a follow-up response after the last public meeting to speak to the road issues and the lot creation issues, and I think those have been addressed in the staff report as well. So, and we're quite happy with the recommendations, the bylaw and the consent conditions as recommended. So with that, I'm just here to answer any questions if any come up later on.
Okay, Jamie, do you want to do a little bit of an explanation for us?
I can very briefly, your worship. This is an application for consent upon which to create one new shoreline lot. The access to the site is via private road. So at the public hearing, there was some comments made related to the access to the site and the road. There's also some questions about the fish habitat associated with the property along the shoreline. Those comments have been considered, and the staff recommendation report is before you, and this report does recommend that council approve both the consent application and the implementing zoning bylaw amendment application. Just as a point, there was an EIS completed by the applicants and their consultant. That EIS did identify where there was fish habitat and where there was not, and the subsequent zoning bylaw amendment has implemented those recommendations of that report. So if there's any questions that arise from council, I'd be happy to do my best to try to answer those for you.
Councillor Moffat, I see you have your hand up, but before I take your question, I need to get the motion on the table. So I have a motion that bylaw number 2022-021, being a bylaw to amend Township of Seguin zoning bylaw number 2006-125, property roll number 4903-10-001-00255, application number R 2021-0013-H for Christen and Porter at 7 Farm Sandy Bay Road is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. So could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat
I so move that motion, Mayor.
and seconded by Councillor Coles?
I will second that motion.
Okay, and Councillor Moffat, you have a question.
Well, I raised the question with both Taylor and Jamie late last week on page 12 of the report. there was a comment about waiving the peer review of the EIS. It's my understanding that this would be the first, if only one, that we've had waived by the township. And I guess what I would like to see is, I understand, and speaking from Taylor, that there is a process. We do have peer reviews done at this time, and we should stick to that process and not waive that exception or waive the need for a peer review. So that is my comment. I see a hand from Rick, so maybe. And I fully understand.
Rick, do you want to reply to it?
Yeah, your worship, just very quickly. First of all, I guess I had missed the provision in the plan for that, but that you also have the alternatives. The consultant that prepared the report is Riverstone Environmental, that have done many of the peer reviews for you. Had we gone through the process of writing the check to you, then you to him, then we would not have needed a peer review at all. I think in this instance, the environmental study or review identified something that wasn't on the property, or wasn't identified previously on the property. That was the rock barrens in the back area, and we, as soon as that was done, we suggested that become part of the zoning amendment. The other area that was identified was the small area of what was originally part of the MNRF type 1 fish habitat. That basically Al Shaw concluded that did not exist at all. On that basis, we had suggested that particular part of the zoning come out if it wasn't needed. However, it was always indicated that if it was an issue, it doesn't affect the development potential of the properties. So from that perspective, there's it could stay in, it could come out. Our client is not overly upset about that. I actually asked, because of the time that has gone on this, the Chrysanthemum Importers and Mr. Landau, who is a proposed purchaser of the property, are trying to move as quickly as they can to finalize everything. And I'm concerned that the time that would take for a peer review that will, in effect, I believe, in effect, confirm exactly what has been proposed by, like I said, who is on your list of peer reviewers, would not add any change. I wasn't aware that was going to still be an issue this evening, but I'm hoping that we'll take that into account.
Okay, thank you. We have a couple other questions from other councillors. Councillor Finson.
Just quickly, I know there was a lot of concern about this piece of property, and were all of those concerns, this is to Jamie, were they all dealt with? Were there, I've been following back and forth, but I wasn't sure that they were resolved. The issues from the neighbors, from David and others.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, to the councillor, as far as the concerns related to the access and the entrance and the private road, I think they've been satisfactorily addressed. As far as the other concerns that may have arisen as part of this application, we're satisfied from a planning perspective that any of the pure land use planning related concerns have been addressed. Just sort of one other item of I guess color to add to the previous comments about the need for the peer review. I'm guessing what happened here was that the municipality was in a bit of time of transition when the pre-consultation meeting was held, and that's why Mr. Hunter was not made aware of the peer review requirement. And so I think there's a bit of a unique circumstance surrounding that, but we aren't, as planners, aren't environmental experts, but I am familiar with Riverstone. I've seen them do lots of peer reviews for municipalities, and also I've worked with them lots on the other side of the fence as well in a consulting role for developers. So I have no concerns about their ability to do a professional, unbiased job in a environmental review that they've completed. And I think that's evident by the size of area they're proposing to add to the EP zone as part of this application, as Mr. Hunter has alluded to. But that question of whether the peer review is necessary, that's really in council's hands, and it's really up to council to make a decision on that in this instance. But that's a bit of background about that. So thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor. So Jamie, there was considerable input from neighbors about the road and the accessing the property and the number of users and the size and contour of the road. I don't know that you mentioned that the planning issues have been dealt with, but I'm wondering, has the road issues been dealt with? Because there seemed to be significant pushback. That's the first thing. Secondly, as I think Rick mentioned, there was in addition to the review concerning EP zones that was missed maybe or brought to light by someone else that was further incorporated. For that reason, it makes one wonder why there wasn't a peer review, as Councillor Moffat had alluded to. That's all I had. If you could react to that, please.
I can do my best through your worship to the councillor. The road concerns we believe have been satisfactorily addressed. Again, this is adding one lot to an existing private road. We understand there's agreements in place. One of the requirements as a condition that's been added is the entering into a private road agreement with the municipality, and that private road agreement confirms that the applicants won't have the same access to services that other properties would enjoy on a municipally maintained road. So we are satisfied based on the minimum volume of traffic that's anticipated, and having reviewed the comments and the feedback that was received at the public meeting, we're satisfied that the creation of this lot is appropriate based on that existing private road. So that's item number one. And then I think your second comment was related to the EIS, the requirement for the peer review. I think I've already touched on that, and I don't really have much to add other than that it wasn't identified at the pre-consultation stage, and for whatever reason, I think it was related to staff turnover at the time and possibly some unfamiliarity with some of the processes. But then secondly, the nature of the review, the nature of the features, and the sort of the comprehensiveness of the Riverstone review that was completed. So I'll leave it at that, but it's really up to in council's hands what they would like to do with that piece.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a motion on the floor. And I think what we've heard is that the peer review is a standard practice. However, in this instance, it may be an abnormality that got missed. As we know, we've had some fairly significant turnover. So we have a motion on the floor, and I'll call for a vote. All in favor of passing this? 4, 5. It's carried. Thank you. And then we have the motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby grant provisional approval to consent application number B 2021-0018-H for Kristen and Porter, subject to the conditions set out in the decision. Could I have a motion from Councillor Fellner?
So moved, Mayor.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Collins.
I'll second the motion, Mayor.
All in favor? Thank you. And I believe Jamie's still my person here. The motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby grant provisional approval to consent application numbers B 2019-0017-C for Gauze and B 2019-0018-C for Nawath, subject to the conditions set out in the decisions. Jamie, do you want to add anything here?
Your worship, this is just briefly, this is another step in the process of the of a situation or of a a series of applications that you've seen previously related to this private road and the transfer of various properties around it. The staff report's, I think, pretty self-explanatory related to that. You will see future items before council dealing with the closure of municipal road allowances and the transfer of abutting lands to properties. But this is, if you recall from the previous meetings before council, we had identified a step-by-step approach to see this to conclusion, and this is just another step in that process. So it results ultimately in some transfer of lands from the NAROth to Goss, and then vice versa. And it all stems from the location of various municipal road allowances, and also from the Shoots Trail Road. So if there's any questions, I can do my best to explain it, but I think the pictures tell 1,000 words in this case, and those are the figures to the staff report.
So could I have a motion to this effect from Councillor Moffat? Didn't have the motion on the floor.
I so move. Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Coles.
I will second that motion.
Are there any questions for Jamie? I recall the list of steps, and this is one of them. All in favor? Thank you, and that's carried. Okay, this is Taylor. You have a very comprehensive report from Director Algie about the next steps in a shoreline alteration bylaw. So I'll ask Taylor to speak to it a little bit, but the report is pretty comprehensive.
Thank you very much. Through your worship, the report that Valerie and I co-authored is suggesting we go to public consultation and an online survey-based document to ask the residents, cottage associations, and contractors in particular what they would like. And I'm calling them shoreline alteration bylaws, but it's the tree cutting, blasting, and site alteration bylaws. In my report, I had a brief table on what were preliminarily the direction we might be going. For instance, the first bylaw is flexible. Seems to me that we might want to go to a bit more of a restrictive or permit-based process if need be. We touch on the scope that it's currently at 20 meters. This could be increased to 60, I throw as an example, as that's the scope of the zoning bylaw and the official plan. With Valerie's help, we can reach out and do some pretty decent public consultation, even in COVID times. Was once upon a time we would just do this by a public open house, but it's a bit more difficult. So I think the online component will be really crucial to getting significant consultation. Then after that, we could draft a bylaw, do further public engagement to have specific review, and then ultimately it would be brought back to council for consideration.
Thank you very much. Does council have any questions for Taylor? Councillor Osborne.
Not a question, Mayor, but Taylor, this is a breath of fresh air. That we finally get our bylaws specific enough that hopefully we can enforce. So good work. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other comments? No. I know you're watching what's going on in the Township of Muskoka Lakes, and at a minimum, I'd like to match their restrictiveness, I guess, is my personal feeling. So as you play with numbers and meters, let's get at least in line with them from a site alteration point of view, is my personal opinion. And do you need anything else from council other than go ahead with you and Valerie to get busy on the consultation?
That's all we needed this time. Thank you. Just that direction.
Thank you. And we'd like to see it done before the end of this council term, if possible, completed. Okay, I think Taylor, you're here again on the information on the bills 13 and 276. Oh my goodness, there's a lot of information there. Do you want to give us a little bit of background?
Certainly. Through your worship, these are both omnibus bills. So when you look at the bills themselves, the attachments, they appear to be very, very large because they are, but I only focused on the Planning Act components that were directly relatable to the business at hand. Bill 13, it won't make any difference for Seguin today, but once we get official plan policies, or say, if we get official plan policies, and if council passes a specific bylaw, there could be to allow the delegation of removing holding symbol bylaws or temporary use bylaws to staff. The details of that would be totally dependent on what official plan policies and what the specific bylaw says that enables that. So like I said, that makes no difference to us as of today. What I've done is ask Skelton Brumwell to review that and come up with some suggestions through our official plan review. Bill 276 has been some technical changes to the Planning Act that have been long sought by lawyers in the consent processes. Most of this won't make much of an impact to how council really evaluates proposals. Of most significance is now there are 2 years to fulfill conditions of consent, whereas previously it was 1 year. That will help applicants tremendously because even getting a surveyor in these times is very, very difficult. And that could also allow for more creative consent proposals as there will be a bit more time to fulfill those conditions. I have nothing further to add.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Taylor? It's comprehensive and detailed. So let's just stay on top of it. But thank you for the summary. Okay, we move on to 8F. So this is the next one. Okay. I have a motion that as per the recommendation of staff report number BD-2022-001, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby authorize and direct staff to commence the required public notice process for the proposed revisions to the building bylaw as outlined in the staff report. And that council does hereby direct staff to present the final revisions to the building bylaw and the 2022 building services fees at a future meeting of council following the required public notice process. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne?
So move, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Fellner?
I'll second that.
And Curtis, would you like to speak to this one? It's big news.
Sure. Good evening, everybody, and through you, your worship. The report before you discusses the need to simplify our building permit fee calculations to better support our permit applicants and align with the use of our new cloud permit technology, eventually leading to the use of online fee payment. The resulting fee calculations also going to address some recommendations that were provided to us in the KPMG Building Services Review. And I provided that in the report as well with a highlighted page where they reference those recommendations. But public notification process is required prior to adjusting or making any changes to your building permit fees. So we would like approval to commence that process. I will take any questions you have for me.
Councillor Moffat.
Yes, just to thank you, Mayor. Just a question. We used McDougall as a comparative. Curtis, is there a reason, or as opposed to any of the other area municipalities, is because of recent changes, or maybe a little bit of explanation as to the comparative, please?
It was difficult to find a municipality that doesn't have extreme volumes right now that we could get a realistic comparison to. I like the way that McDougall does their fees. They're based on a square foot rate. It's an easy calculation to utilize, and it was a good comparative for us.
Okay, thank you.
I think the most important word is simplify. Because I know when we applied for a building permit many years ago, we couldn't figure out where any of the numbers came from. No matter, even after people had sat down and explained it to us, it was just write this check. We have no idea what we're writing a check for. So congratulations, and go for the public consultation and let's bring it back as quickly as possible. So congratulations on getting it done, Curtis.
Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor of going out to public? Thank you. Corporate services. You want me to open it up for discussion? This is Ferris Hill. Okay, so you have a comprehensive staff report in front of you. I see Michelle online regarding the financing options for Ferris Hill. So I'll ask Michelle to speak a little bit to them. And we have a fair number of correspondence that we have received on this issue. So over to you, Michelle.
Thank you. The report's fairly self-explanatory. It outlines the options that council has available to finance this particular project. Everywhere from, increasing debt, increasing taxes, having the residents pay it all, having the residents pay part. So now council gets to decide how you'd like to go ahead with this.
Do any councillors have anything to say about the report? Councillor Coles.
Had to be the first one to put up my hand. Yes, I do. A couple of things. I think there's some fundamental principles we need to keep in mind when we're talking about township roads, whether they be seasonal roads or year-round roads. They're all township roads, and I believe the cost to maintain those roads should be shared by all township residents, not parceled out so that some residents who live on this road pay for their road, and they should be spread out across the township. We do this with our regular roads, they're year-round roads, and I don't see that it's any different for seasonal roads. They're all township assets. I think existing capital road budget is for current year year-round road maintenance. This should be increased over time through increased assessment and resulting taxes. So that's for regular road budget, capital budget. Seasonal road upgrades have their own budget currently. I know it's not very large, but we have been able to develop a small budget. This could be expanded over time as more year-round residents move to and build year-round homes in our township. And I can tell you that in every case where I've had conversations with our seasonal road residents about making their roads year-round, I've had people come back to me and say, well, if you're going to make the road year-round, then we're going to build a house here. That's the economic development part of this, and that's the potential to increase our tax base from such building and such economic development. So we want to encourage more and more people to move here to live on a year-round basis. This is good for our local economy. And as township assessment increases through things like changing seasonal roads to year-round roads, then so should taxes to keep pace with township's responsibilities. Projects like Ferris Road could be upgraded over multiple years, as is the case with many other roads in the township. When we begin road redevelopment in the township, whether it be a year-round road or not, many times they're multi-year projects. I see that applying here as well. Projects like Ferris Road could be upgraded over multiple years, as is the case with many other roads. I believe that the Ferris Road issue is a bit more significant because of the liability that we have, simply because of the nature of the road. So I really want to support doing it sooner than later, but I think it can be done over a 2 or 3 year basis. And just to support that, I think Michelle, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think our capital budget for seasonal roads currently is $250,000. Is that correct? Right. And I just wanted to add to that we used to spend about $555,000, something like that, on Belvedere, which is now reduced to $431.50, I believe, in the coming year for 22, which is a saving of $123,910, something like that, $123,900. So let's put that into seasonal roads, which gives us $373,000, roughly $374,000. In 3 years, that's the budget to do Ferris Lane. Could be done easily if those numbers make sense to Michelle, of course. Anyway, that's I just believe that it doesn't matter whether they're seasonal roads or year-round roads. They're all assets of the township, and we should be doing everything we can to get them upgraded to where they need to be. And if we all have not driven on Ferris Lane or Ferris Road, I challenge you to do it. You can't right now, number one. You can't get up it. But even in the summertime, it's difficult. It's a very steep road, and it's a bit of a liability. So if there is a solution, I don't think it has to be done year one. I think it can be done over 2 or 3 years. I think it should be done. Sorry, that's my rant.
Thank you very much. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor. I couldn't agree with Councillor Coles more. In fact, he has shortened my comments substantially. The only thing I'd like to add, he's perfectly right. When we're spending $250,000 a year on upgrades to seasonal roads, $425,000 was spent over the last 2 years to benefit 284 properties. Those people didn't get levied, and nor should anyone else. I agree 100% with Councillor Coles. This is a roads issue. It's Seguin wide, and that costs of it upgrading or fixing any of our roads should be borne across the board. And I think the important thing here is set up a schedule, budget it out for as Councillor Coles has suggested, 2 or 3 years, but let's get it started. Let's not talk about it into 23 or 24. And wait till somebody rolls down that hill and out onto Rankin Lake Road. Thank you.
Councillor Finson, next.
Okay, I'm of the same mind. Now, I wouldn't have agreed with Art when we first started this process, but I believe that it is all of our responsibility. But I do not believe that you can only focus on one road and get it done with all of the money that you have available. I think that you have to put a proper plan together so that all of the seasonal roads get some kind of attention, or at least some of them get some kind of attention, that you can't focus all your money on just those roads. But I do agree that it has to be done, but I think that maybe there's some kind of in between that we could do. If they want it done faster, maybe money could be, maybe the residents could participate if they wanted to, not they don't have to. So if you put a plan on that takes 5 years, then if they want it done faster, they have to come up with money for that. You know what I'm saying? If the plan doesn't suit them. But I think that Art is right, and I think that Rod is. I think we should be taking care of those seasonal roads, and I believe we're already on that road because of what we discussed today. So we're already on the way to doing a great job and getting it done properly. So I think we've got to continue on that road, even if it takes a little longer than we expected. Starting it, I think, is what needs to be done. Thank you.
Mayor McDermott's just grabbing some water, so I'll just assist for a second. I think Councillor Collins, you were next.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason. I would just like, every one of us has road issues in our wards. And that's why there's a yearly roads budget and a 10-year infrastructure improvement strategy, which I follow. If the road in question is not listed in the road strategy, then we need to put it in, but not ahead of what is already there, or move what is already planned back another year. I looked at option 5, and if that is what staff is recommending, if option 5 accomplishes that and does not set back road projects already slated for construction within our roads improvement strategy, I'm okay with that. If it does not, I'm not. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Councillor Moffat.
Thank you, Mayor. I thought I was going to be the last person to speak, but I see Councillor Fellner has beat me to that. So I think that if you notice the correspondence, this is an issue that's been ongoing. We had a very large deputation back in the summer of 2019 where it packed the council chamber. Residents that really want closure to address this. There was an email today from a resident to me indicating that his son had to quit his job because he could not get down the hill in the wintertime. And his parents have been in the township since the late 70s, and they've endured it, and they just want closure. We have neighbors that are looking to build permanent homes to retire in, and they just want certainty that they will be able to drive to their place. So I hope tonight we can provide that certainty that we will move this forward. And when I look at again some of the correspondence, there are residents that are willing to contribute financially to this. I think the idea of having a meeting and discussing the options in terms of the plan forward is important. I've spoken to Jason about that, and I think that's something that we need to do. I don't have contact with every resident on this road that utilizes this road. I have contact with many of them, but I think we need to get everyone informed on the same page, so we have a path forward based on a decision tonight that we will address this and move it forward. Thank you.
Councillor Fellner.
Thank you, Mayor. If I remember correctly, earlier in this term of council, when we proposed to provide funds to upgrade seasonal roads, that money was provided out of the capital fund to no detriment of any of the projects that were contemplated, I believe. And then we subsequently increased that budget, and we've had some pretty good success in that program. To me, the Ferris Road Hill needs to be fixed. It makes sense to me to stretch it over a period of time. Where economically we can afford it. But the question that comes to my mind too is the capital budget that we have for our roads program, is it really appropriate in this day and age, considering what we've got? So we've got there's a bunch of issues floating around there that I think that need to be taken in account to really move forward and make an impact finally with projects of this nature. I'm in agreement with our Coles. I think we have the ability now. We have a plan in which we can do this project in stages over multiple seasons, and I think the project needs to move ahead. So I would be in agreement with that.
Thank you. Councillor Collins, do you still have your hand up, or do you have it up again? Okay. Thank you. And Councillor Fellner, your hand's still up.
I'm trying to find, and
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I'm trying to find my hand.
I guess where I sit is partly between everybody. Councillor Moffat and I have talked several times in the last couple of days about the need for communication with all of the road or property owners on the road. And I think that's an important first step. I think you're hearing council say it's a priority, and that in and of itself to those landowners is important information because they've never really heard it before. And I think it's not going to happen overnight, no matter what. There's some land issues, paperwork issues, engineering studies, all kinds of things. So I do agree with Councillor Collins that it shouldn't bump anything that's already on our capital roads project. It needs to be fit into it. And how we allocate funds or ask for landowner participation will have a big impact on the timing. So what I'm hearing from council is, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody can stop me or whatever, is that we'd like to move ahead. We'd like to make it part of a capital project. We might go to some of the property owners for funds, but immediately we need to start communicating with them in an official capacity. And I think that's a place to involve Valerie. How do we do it? When do we do it? Do we do it in a letter? Do we do it in a meeting? What do we do? But I think that's the immediate first step. I personally think there's an advantage in having some of the people participate because it might expedite it. And some of the people might want to do that. And sooner is better than later, but doing it properly is also important. I see a comment from Councillor Osborne. Do we have a resolution? What's the next step before I acknowledge Councillor Osborne?
Right now, there is a staff report on the table that has a recommendation. So that's the only thing we have right now.
Okay, but it basically says, go ahead.
It's the recommendation of the staff.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Osborne, you have one more comment?
Yes, you invited me to interrupt you if I wished on your summary. I do have a problem with getting involved in asking what people want to contribute and what don't, because then we're getting into individuals funding our roads program again. And I thought at the outset here with comments from Councillor Coles and Vincent and others that we didn't want to have to levy people individually. So I'm not sure if it's a good idea to open that can of worms as who wants to donate and who doesn't. Whether that would just delay the start of the project. I do, however, agree that we shouldn't forego other projects that are in the mill for this, and that we have to find funds elsewhere. But I just don't know that it's a good idea to talk about this contribution from some and not from others, because it may defeat the purpose here. Just a comment about what's before us. There's a report before us that recommends an option where people do pay. And I think that's all we have. And I don't know if it's a resolution or just a report, but it does state that the recommendation from staff is that people pay the roughly $13,000 towards it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're correct. That's what we've got as a staff recommendation. It's option 5.
Yes.
Councillor Moffat, you have another comment?
Just that I have prepared and provided to both Craig and Jason an amended resolution that takes into consideration a staged approach such that the road would be completed on or before December 31st, 2024. So we're looking at basically a 3-year window with respect to this, as we've talked about. I hopefully you have a copy of that.
Yeah, would that be like option 5, but with the December 2024?
No.
No, not at all.
No.
It would not be option 5.
Do you want me to read it? Do we have it? Okay. Okay, I will read it, and then we need to know if you will move it. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby approve completing the work for improving Ferris Road Hill, concept number 6 of the RHH engineering report dated November 24th, 2021, as approved on December 6th, 2021, in stages as approved by the Chief Administrative Officer, such that the improvements to Ferris Road Hill will be in service on or before December 31, 2024, to the west of the existing Ferris Road. Funding of the stages would be provided through general tax revenue and grants where available. Will you move that?
I so move that motion, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. And could I have a seconder? Counselor Coles? I see comments from Counselor Finson.
My comment would be that putting a date on it as a finish date of December 31st, 2024 isn't a lot of time. And that means there will be no other roads projects being done between now and then. And I disagree with that. I think that you need to, you can't use all of the money for one project, especially if there's other things already on the list. So I'm not sure that an end date is, I agree. I agree with your motion, except for the end date. I don't believe that we can put an end date on it until you have a staff report saying how long it's going to take and how much it's going to cost and where you're getting that money from. So if you can provide the money and provide the information for that through a staff report, then I would be absolutely in agreement. But I'm afraid to put a December 31st, 2024 date on it when I know there's an awful lot of other things that need doing. Anyway, thank you.
The other point I want to make is there's going to be a change of council. So whatever we do here could get undone.
Yeah, that's
Councillor Osborne, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor. What I wanted to do was propose an amendment to Councillor Moffat's motion. And that amendment would read to delete the end date of, I believe it was December 24, Councillor Moffat?
Yeah, it's December 2024.
To delete that and replace it with a date to be determined by council of the day as appropriate to our budgeting. But not to defeat this motion. This is just to amend and take out this firm 24 date as Councillor Finson related to, because we might not be able to do it. And that therefore would kibosh the motion. So can I ask for a seconder to remove that date? Yeah.
Let me just check with the clerk. How do we amend the?
It's a motion to amend, Mayor.
Yeah, but let's have.
So yes, Councillor Osborne has just made a motion to amend the resolution by deleting the end date. And now you're looking to see if there's a seconder to see if there's discussion on that.
I'll second that.
Okay, Councillor Collins seconds the amendment. Okay.
Sorry, Mayor, if I could we, rather than just leave it open-ended, could we replace it with wording that states to be in coordination with the public, the roads department, public works budgeting, to commensurate with budgeting abilities in the next 3 or 4 years? Can we replace it with some other words? That's what I'm asking. Maybe
I think our CAO would like to chime in here.
Sure.
Thank you, Your Worship. Members of council, we're hearing a lot of comments and a lot of feedback, and perhaps what might be in the best interest of council is to defer this item to the next meeting of council. And that would give staff the opportunity to do some of the further analysis that's been recommended, explore some of the questions that have been brought up about what's perhaps being deferred or impacted as a result, and come back to council with a different view, if you will, that would address today's comments and concerns, but under the context of we understand council's desire to see this move forward. So I might recommend that if council has an appetite for that, to defer this discussion to the next meeting of council, and we'll undertake a little further analysis based on tonight's conversation and come back with a recommendation on how to advance from here.
Well, then I would move to defer till
Okay.
April. Yep.
Just a second. The clerk has to tell us what we need to do.
So first, right now, there is a proposed amendment on the table. Councillor Osborne could withdraw that proposed amendment if he wished. And then council could deal with the original motion by Councillor Moffat, and someone could move to defer that at this point, but I see there's still a lot of discussion. So.
Yeah, there's still a lot of hands up. So let's, Councillor Osborne, do you want to remove your amendment at this point?
Yes, I'm prepared to do that as long as we continue to move this forward. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Counselor Fellner, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. A couple of things. One, I tend to, the drop dead date of December 2024 it isn't really going to fly. I don't think we really want to agree. We don't want to lock ourselves into that. There's very little capacity in the industry right now because of COVID. A bunch of variables. I mean, the other thing that I think we want to try to maybe have staff look into is a method that once we kick this project off, then the intent is for it to be continually worked on until it's completed. So if we did work in 2023, then we expect that work would be done in 2024 and maybe 2025 or whatever it is, whatever the years are, so that it doesn't get started and then, doesn't go anywhere. Right? So those are, I'm fine with the deferral. I think the deferral is a smart thing to do. But those are my two observations there. If you put a dead drop date on it, I mean, you're going to pay a premium. I think that's really something that we want to do. So.
Okay, Counselor Collins.
Yes, I agree with Councillor Fellner and Councillor Finson that this drop dead date is not going to fly because right now in the budget, and I'm looking at the infrastructure improvement strategy, right? 10-year infrastructure, that would put off it'll put back Star Lake Road and Blackwater Lake Road. And they've already been put back once. They're not going to be put back again, as far as I'm concerned. So this date, yes, I'll agree to defer this, but that's what I have to say. Let's defer it for now and put something else together. And I think we've all said that we want to see this road fixed, yes, but not if it's going to influence the projects that are already that are already started and are expected to be started, because there'll be civil war if if these projects are pushed back. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne, last comment.
Okay, through you, Mayor, to the CAO. Jason, I agree with your take on this. How long do you think it would take staff to come back with some, and bang some numbers out and some timelines? Would we defer till April, May? Like how far into the future? Can you give me some idea?
Thank you, Councillor Osborne. I suggested in my earlier comments that we would bring it back for the next meeting of council. So I don't suspect there's months of analysis to do here, but if we were unable to achieve that, I would advise council. But at this point, I would suggest we'll be back next month.
That's great. Thank you. So the deferral, is that still motion on the table to defer?
Well, I just need to get the clerk's clarification of what I need to write down here.
So right now, we need if someone wishes to, we need a motion to defer.
Okay, Art Cole. So, okay.
And then we need a seconder for the deferral. And now you're just going to defer it to council meeting in April. Okay, so
Okay,
that's on your motion,
second that,
deferred to council meeting in April.
To April council. I have a motion from Art Coles. I didn't see who.
You don't have a seconder yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I said it, I second it.
Okay, so
Council.
Councillor Fellner seconded it. And there's discussion on the motion to defer and then a vote.
Is there any discussion on the deferral? Oh, I see two hands up.
Used to be.
Councillor Moffat.
I just want to be clear, thank you, Mayor. We're talking about the April 4th meeting,
Yeah.
correct?
The next meeting of council, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And just,
Councillor Osborne, you have another comment?
just for clarity, so this is to defer the motion that's presented by Councillor Moffat, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
And I would hope that when staff comes back, they'll look at the whole capital roads project list and help us figure out where it fits in and how it's financed.
Got a vote?
Okay, so I have a motion to defer from Art Coles, seconded by Terry Fellner, and it's deferred to the April 4th, 2022 council meeting. All in favor of the deferral? Okay, carried. You better check that I did this right. Okay, we move on to museum. But I believe this is still Michelle. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby deny the request from the West Perry Sound Museum for a grant in excess of the amount approved in the 2022 operating budget in principle. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins?
I so move your motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Finson.
I second that.
Michelle, do you want to give any background, or perhaps you, Gail, as our council member?
Well, I can start with the application. The application that came in from the museum is looking for 22,500, which is 5,000 more than what is in the budget. I have some serious concerns about the application that was presented, mainly starting with it's not a balanced budget. They're coming in with revenues of 142,000 and expenses of 200,000. So they're starting off in a deficit to begin with. The additional $5,000 they say is going to go towards this deficit. I'm not quite sure how they're going to make up all that money, to be honest.
Okay, thank you, Gail. Do you have anything to add?
What I would say to Michelle is I'm confused. I was there and I still don't understand. And I didn't agree with it when I was there. And I got some kickback for that. I'm happy with giving them what we gave them last year. I'd be happy with that. They are opening, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, Michelle. I don't know, like I'm not like you or Daryl. I don't understand what they give me in the budget. I ask questions, but I can't particularly challenge it because I'm not good enough at that kind of thing to challenge what they're saying or to ask the right questions. So I think what they're doing is they've got some money this year from COVID. So they're going to be fine next year. They're not really in a deficit. I don't know how to explain it, but that's what they were talking about at the meeting. So I think you're right, Michelle, that giving them more is not okay right now.
Yeah, and I would support Michelle's recommendation. I think they've been closed for virtually 2 years. They should have had some serious cost savings with COVID closure. And I know Gail and I have talked about where is this museum going longer term? And I think they need a rethink. So I would support Michelle's recommendation to stick with what's in our budget. And we have a motion to that effect on the floor. All in favor? So is it you, Michelle, that has to communicate with the museum? Yeah, okay, thank you.
So we're warm.
And the next item is for Valerie, who I believe has not been to council before.
Been to
So
council,
welcome,
however-
Valerie. And you've got a
Thank
good
you,
news
Worship.
story. You've got a good news story. So go for it.
I do. So thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, everyone. So the report I submitted is focused on certain elements of external digital communication strategies and tactics that we have been using over the last 6 months. And it includes just a sampling of some analytics data that reflects significant growth in community engagement that we've experienced over the last 6 months using select digital platforms. So the numbers you see in there are just based on what stuck out to me when I looked at various numbers from Facebook, Instagram, Bang the Table, and compared them to what we had seen in the 6 months prior.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Valerie? I think it's made a difference. When I got some feedback from a friend in California about our fiery Fridays, I thought, holy smokes, we're having pretty good reach here. So
yes,
the good news stories are there. And I think you got a signed public consultation on the site alteration bylaw today too. So you'll be working with Taylor on that. So I think it's a good news story. Gail, you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say what a great job you've done, Valerie. Really impressed, and really nice to see you out on the skating rink with my niece and my little grand nephews, and just keep doing a fabulous job. I'm so impressed. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Gail. Thank you.
Any other comments? Well, thank you, Valerie, and keep up the good work and keep communicating. You're making a difference.
Absolutely.
And it was a deficit pre-Valerie.
Excellent.
So it's partly fixed.
Getting there. Thank you.
Thank you. We move on to item 9, which is a specific request from Councillor Moffat to attend the Ontario Bike Summit. Do we need a resolution to this? Councillor Moffat, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to pull this request because within a week, the in-person tickets were sold. And I'm not going to attend the conference virtually again this year or this time. I've had enough virtual conferences, so I wanted to attend in person. So with that, I only got news of that on Friday. There's no point in moving the resolution forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's disappointing. They topped a number that they would accept in person?
Yeah, within a week, like it was unbelievable, the demand. So again, like I'm certain I put this out to both Dominique and Tom. You know, I think it's important that someone from the township attends this. We've, recently passed our trail management plan, and this is, yes, it's focused on bike, but there's more to this conference, and I think they would benefit from attending. So hopefully they've at least done that, and maybe they're okay with attending it virtually, but I've done enough. I taught this morning virtually with 5 people, and no one said anything for 4 hours, and I looked at black screens. So I'm okay with not attending. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we have bylaw here. That bylaw number 2022-038, being a bylaw to repeal the appointment of James Osborne as a building official and bylaw enforcement officer, and Christopher Busby as deputy chief building official and bylaw enforcement officer for the corporation of the Township of Seguin, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat?
I so move that motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Coles.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? This is housekeeping. Thank you. And I have a motion that bylaw number 2022-040, being a bylaw to write off taxes on properties in the Township of Seguin, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time. Could I have a motion by Councillor Osborne?
So moved.
And seconded by Councillor Fellner.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Just a question to Michelle. Are we really passing this motion on $33?
Wow, what a chunk of change.
Yes, we are. We have to by law.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you. We probably spent that much on paper. And I have a motion that bylaw number 2022-041, being a bylaw to appoint Sean Carroll as fire chief and a bylaw enforcement officer, animal control officer for the corporation of the Township of Seguin, and to repeal the appointment of Don Hood, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins
I so move your motion, Mayor.
and seconded by Gail Finson?
I second that motion.
And I believe Sean may be on the call. I met him this afternoon. He comes to us from the Waterloo Regional Airport, where he was fire chief and an active volunteer. I understand that firefighting's been in his family for more than just his generation. He and his wife have bought a home in the area. They have 3 sons, one of whom is living with them. And he is full-time starting this week. And I asked him if he felt like he was coming home, and he said, not really, because I started in Sudbury, even further north. So he's glad to be back in the north away from Waterloo. And when you're in the office or seeing the red truck go by, wave to Sean. I think he's going to be a real asset. So welcome, Sean. And we have a motion on the floor. All in favor of appointing Sean. And there will be something to say farewell to Don to be discussed later. Council reports. Let's start with you, Daryl.
Thank you, Mayor. It's been a busy month. Back February 8th, did an interview with Taylor Clark, a new reporter from the North Star, who at the time was living in Timmins, was unable to find housing accommodations in the area. So she was working remotely from her home in Timmins, her apartment. The discussion in the interview was related to the Integrated Community Energy and Climate Action Plan's ICECAP. So that was there was an article written on that. February 9th, ICECAP had its 2022 semi-annual meeting. Spending a lot of time working with the Muskoka Watershed Council on governance matters, as well as attending community roundtable. We have another meeting again this week on governance in order to ensure that we are in compliance with the new Ontario Corporations Not-for-Profit Act. On February 16th, attended the Muskoka Steamship and Discovery Center webinar, The Best of the Two Worlds, which was a presentation from David Pearson. I only was able to attend one of these webinars. They were basically how to integrate Indigenous thinking with non-Indigenous thinking. So this was one of 5 presentations. On February 24th, attended the Georgian Bay Forever washing machine filters reduce microfiber and microplastics emissions. And this was a pilot project that was done in the town of Parry Sound. They're currently doing one in the town of Collingwood. This has been written up in the local newspapers, and certainly a move afoot to not having a filter like you have with your dryer that takes the lint out. This is a movement to have these attached permanently to a washing machine and not have to have them as a separate unit, but have them built in by the manufacturers. So certainly a lot going on in there in order to eliminate the microfibers that come from your clothes, et cetera, into waste systems, whether it be septics or sewers. It eventually finds its way out into water. On February 26th, attended the Federation of Ontario Cottages Association Spring Seminar and Annual Meeting. I shared with everyone the part of an impact presentation with regards to cottage or seasonal communities, and Seguin was, in that top tier of activity from an impact perspective. They're also hosting a couple of webinars on invasive species and also on not-for-profit. So Gail, if you want to suggest that for your museum, they may want to consider that. Also on just on the FOCA Spring Seminar, there's actually another group that's collecting water data, Great Lakes data stream, in order to again just get more information on water. So if people are interested, it's an open hub. If I think maybe I'll connect with Dominique and see if we should be, sharing our information that we collect in the township on that, just to provide more data. And again, last but not least, a couple of meetings on March 1st and 2nd with regards to Muskoka Watershed Council, the governance and such. So emails from residents on plowing, not surprising. Short-term accommodations popped up over the February long weekend, and some planning matters. And that is it for myself for the last month. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Coles.
Thank you, Mayor. I am on. Okay. Yeah, busy month again for me as well. February the 10th, meeting with Miller Thompson, legal experts on life leases, and we're trying to deal with terminating life leases at the Belvedere site ultimately. So we had an initial meeting with Miller Thompson on the 10th, and on the 15th, we had a meeting with Northwest Health a possible future rebuild for Belvedere. And then on the 16th, to follow up with Miller Thompson on their findings for our questions with them about life leases. On the February the 22nd, Belvedere Heights finance meeting, and on the 23rd, our management and typical monthly management meeting, both uneventful. Although I must say that Belvedere Heights is in very good financial shape, and taking advantage of all the provincial funding for COVID has been extremely beneficial as well. March the 2nd, meeting with consultants re the possible future of Belvedere's existing site. This is something we're trying to be on top of, so because there's potential revenue out of that site, which will benefit the new build and or the municipalities that were responsible for Belvedere in the beginning. On the afternoon of March, sorry, the afternoon of March the 2nd was our ad hoc meeting with KPMG, talking about 3P models for developing the Belvedere site, the new Belvedere site, that is public-private partnership options. And we're led to believe that the province is very keen on this as an option because it's 100% funded, and kind of takes the province off the hook, and us, frankly, and it's a lease back kind of situation. So that's all in the works, and lots of exciting things happening. I was hoping to have some really good news for everyone tonight, but we didn't get the answer back yet. So I hope by the end of the week we've got some really good news. So that's it for me for now.
Thank you, Art. I know you've got a full calendar with Belvedere meetings.
More than.
Yeah.
That doesn't count for the phone calls.
No, they're not on your calendar. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor. I had the February 24th meeting with EMS committee. At that committee, the director outlined some of the problems we're having with paramedic staffing. We only have so many positions at EMS in Parry Sound allotted for full-time positions. We do have some part-times. Other municipalities are hungry for paramedics as well, and we're losing some of the new graduates of the courses to those other municipalities, and as a result having to pay a lot of overtime to our existing full-time staff. So it's an ongoing problem. We've asked, actually given direction to Dave Thompson, the director, to see if he can get more local training for paramedic certificates in the area and try to capture more graduates for our service, because right now we're dwindling badly. So he's on that. That's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Fellner.
Yes, since the last meeting, I had a Committee of Adjustment meeting. I was at a library board meeting. Had the opportunity to skate in the arena at Family Day weekend. And facility is in very, very nice shape. Ice is perfect. I didn't get a chance to skate across the road. I was pooped. Other than that, I was at the dog sled run earlier back in February. It was well attended, and the dogs are certainly eager to get going as usual. Other than that, it's been sort of a quiet month. Haven't had much to do with park to park this time of the year, so but we're trying to get our plans in place to kick off sort of our program early in the spring. So that's about it.
Thank you, Counselor Fellner. Counselor Collins.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I know for a fact that on Saturday, Lakeland was in Orville powering up their new tower that they put up back in the spring or back in the fall of last year. I don't know if they've completed powering up for high-speed internet, but they were there changing over their equipment. So that's good news for everybody here in Orville. And this week on the 10th, I have a DSAB meeting. That's it for now.
Thank you. And Counselor Finson.
I had a DSAB meeting on the 10th, and they discussed their new MetaView project has been opened, and they're advertising rentals up there. I sent the information to the township so they could advertise for them as well. It's in Powassan. I attended the sled run. I worked the hot chocolate and coffee thing from about 8 till 2. I just about froze. I was cold right to my bones were shaking. But it was lovely, well attended. It was just really nice to be out with everybody. I didn't realize how long I'd been out until I got home because I was so cold. We had an RCAC meeting, which was an informal meeting, but we discussed upcoming events, and we discussed the community hall, about going forward with the community hall. And also there was a big discussion on the banners. So the banner little sleeves and putting up seasonal banners, like maybe something at Christmas, something in the summertime to say the antique, car show and the market, those kind of banners. So I'll discuss that with Dominique going forward. Also there had a museum meeting. They are open. The museum has been opened. They also have a new strategic plan. Other than that, I've got Ontario Good Roads in April and the Faunum meeting in May. One in Toronto, one in North Bay. Hopefully they're all in person, otherwise I'm not going. Anyway, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks very much, everybody. When you've got one meeting a month, it does get busy. So I'll be quick. And February 9th, Council Fellner and I met with the Lake Joe North Association, and like many other lake associations, they're anxiously awaiting the site alteration bylaw and are watching. So I think we'll have a lot of input once we get the communication and consultation out. On February 11th, I met with 2 councillors from Muskoka Lakes Township with Liz from SMART. Muskoka Lakes Township is just beginning their broadband strategy, and they wanted to learn some things from us. So we shared some of our ups and our downs, and also shared with them our tower siting documents, that kind of thing. We're way ahead of Muskoka Lakes in terms of the documentation that we have. On the 14th, I met with Taylor as well from the North Star. She's been very busy. If you look at her byline, she's writing a lot of stuff for the North Star and seems to do her research. She has been assigned to the municipal file. So that's good. We didn't have anybody in the last year actually assigned to the municipal file. So welcome to Taylor. On the 22nd, the other Taylor, Jason and I met with the Otter Lake Association. They are continuing their discussion about the causeway, and we're trying to tell them it's a done deal. They've also sent us some things they think we should do on the site alteration bylaw. I was at the microfibers washing machine Zoom meeting that Daryl alluded to. And I found it interesting following the meeting. I did a little bit of research, and I was sitting in Mexico while I was doing this. All of the Maytag and General Electric washing machines in Canada are made in Mexico, and they come with the filters because it's a law in Mexico. So I gave that information to the researcher that was on the call, and they didn't know that that's where the manufacturing was happening. 25th, Jason and I did meet with some representatives from Municipal Affairs to discuss the MZO, and we hope it's moving. And tomorrow is the Airport Commission meeting that I will attend. And I am also going to meet with some of the councillors from Perry Sound to talk about the MZO after that meeting. So that's it. Do you have anything to add, Jason? So I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the correspondence as presented on the agenda and addendum for the March 7th meeting of council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Finson?
I so move.
And seconded by Councillor Moffat.
I'll second that motion, Mayor.
All in favor of receiving correspondence? Thank you. And I have a motion that the bylaw number 2022-042, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of meetings of council, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Coles?
I will so move, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Osborne.
So move.
All in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn this regular meeting of council at 6:51 p.m. to meet again on Monday, April 4th, 2022, or at the call of the mayor. Could I have a motion from Councillor Fellner?
I so move.
And seconded by Councillor Collins.
I'll second the motion, Mayor.
All in favor? Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening. If you're driving, drive
Thank you.
safely.
Good night, everybody.
Yep.
Good night.
Night now.
Good night.